Hello everyone, and welcome to this assembly and painting video for Zaateroth, an Infernal Master from the Infernals army of Warmachine hordes. This is their equivalency of a Warcaster or Warlock, so not really that much different, although kind of is. It's basically a merger between the two. But regardless, we're here for the assembly and painting of. Zaateroth is a very interesting model. I really love her. Sculpt-wise, this is easily my favorite of the three Infernal Masters that have been released so far, although I have yet to work with the other two. I've tried getting them, but that's a different story. This is also the one that came with the starter box. I love that the creature here has, at her base, has tentacles that wrap around the entire model, are incorporated in it, are holding things up for her. Although her head, I wasn't really a big fan of. I could never get it at a proper angle. It feels like it's tilted once it's done. So yeah, as you can see, the assembly actually wasn't much. There wasn't pieces on pieces. Everything glues straight onto the major part of the body, and she pretty much covers the entire base. Now, I do have some trouble with painting for this model involving keeping part of it in frame, so I just want to give you that heads up before you get too far into the video, in case that might annoy you. There's also parts of it that are sped up, like this. Obviously everything's sped up, but I mean more so than normal. The model is a lot of black and red, so the video is going to be sped up a lot more for parts in which I'm just painting mass amounts of black and red. But the red in this case is primarily one of my brighter reds, if not my brightest red, because it's being used as a glow effect lighting in the entire model. This is in fact a common thing amongst the Infernal models in general. I do the same thing for the Umbral Guardians, which I don't have a video for, but if people would like to see those, I can post pictures. And it's a lot of getting into crevices and things like that. It's one of those few moments where I'm just I kind of should have washed down my paints, but at the same point in time, I really don't like doing that. What I'm doing a lot of here is, especially with the thinner parts, I'm painting the color and then purposely rubbing it in. I'm not trying to brush it away. I'm actually trying to make sure all of it is in there and everything, while also, at the same point in time, rubbing it away from the excess where it's not supposed to be. I originally primed this model black and then painted a lot of areas that I wanted brighter white. This is actually one of the few cases, and in fact the only one when it came to painting Infernals, in which I realized I should have just primed this white. I primed all the horrors white, but I primed everything else in the army black. The horrors also including the Griever swarms. I don't have the other unit, the medium-based unit, so which I would prime black without question. But again, I do this for almost the entire model, everything except for the octopus-like thing and her midsection back. Her midsection front still gets painted like this, although I don't cover the red on that till far later. This is just me doing a lot of prep work for the most part. Yeah, it just, deciding where to paint it, you can see all the areas that are painted white on her lower part, which is the part that's also very similar on Umbral Guardians and the other two Infernal Masters, is just, it was a pain to decide. Some of it is just okay, so I want to pick all the recesses to be red, but what is a recess? What is just a fold? And yeah, it's supposed to give a smoke-like effect. But other than that, a lot of it is the jewelry and a few other things end up getting painted red. There's one model whose sword is glowing red, and I wanted to give off an object light effect, and managed to do that just fine. Now, as a note before this gets any further, people might be questioning the title image, or the thumbnail for the video. Yeah, this and one other model that I will be eventually posting a video for are examples of what happens when your varnish goes wrong and you get the effect of ghosting. So you will be able to see at the end of the video what the model actually was meant to look like. The thumbnail, while not too far off, is still what happens when it ghosts. I'm still okay with the model and how it looks, more so with the other one than this one. But yeah, it's painful. I might go back and fix it someday, but that it's a different story entirely. It might not take too long. It might result in me having to repaint the entire model. Who knows? Not me right now. Also, the front of the base is white right now, but will be the same red. And I do that for all of my Infernal models, regardless of what their total paint scheme is, as I try to keep the front arcs for Warmachine Hordes models the same amongst their army or faction or whatever you want to refer to. It gets more confusing with mercenaries and minions of what I'm going to do that with. For example, my gators, I try to make it look like they're coming out of the water onto a beach, and my pirates look like the exact opposite because it's supposed to be they're standing on a ship with water on the over the edge. But yeah, so you can see why I've kind of sped this up. In fact, I originally started recording part of the black for this lower area, but I've decided to cut that out entirely, partially because I only recorded part of it and thus made the decision partway through, and partially because I don't want to waste your time anymore with that. But here we are on to the squid-like thing, where I'm painting it with a sky bluish color. Now, I decided that this thing would be painted different from all of my horrors, like their version of Warbeast / Warmachines, or Warjacks, and it just came off as a different color in every bit of art that I saw. I want it to still feel like it's one of those or similar, or an otherworldly entity, but I didn't want to paint it that same color. I actually go with a far lighter blue, the Frostbite blue from Privateer Press, in fact, as their base coat, and then paint much lighter colors onto it. While this, I still want it to look blue when it's done, as opposed to a gray with a blue tint. Although, if I'm correct, I do highlight this in gray. But yeah, painting everything of this was not too hard or anything like that. It was just a matter of getting all the nooks and crannies. The eye is the only thing that's any difficulty. The scrolls on the side I consider an entirely different task. And the bands are honestly real simple. Speaking of the bands, I wanted to bring up a point of, as I was editing this video, I began to wonder, are the bands there because they're also on Zaateroth herself, to kind of ground them in reality / meat space, not wherever the Infernals come from, which I believe is Karen, which is their version of the afterlife. I could be using the wrong name, because I do get the names for their spirit space and their meat space backwards all the time. But regardless, bit of lore questioning there. And again, more tentacles. I love how this thing is basically sitting here as an assistant. It's not like the crows are on some models, where they're just there and looking cool, which I still appreciate heavily. But this thing looks like it's actually, hey, I'm helping. I'm holding onto your scrolls. I'm holding onto your inkwell. I'm doing the writing and everything. And I'm holding your book while you read it, probably using another tentacle somewhere to turn a page, or just letting you do that for once. And then onto her flesh. Now, I did decide to paint the Infernal Masters also a shade of gray, but I didn't want them to be as light colored as the horrors, which I have yet to actually paint any of the horrors. They will be, I have painted the grievers, but they will be, and they'll be the same paint scheme as that, or colors. So for the Infernal Masters, I decided to go with a mid-range dark gray and then highlight onto that. I think this is the darker gray. I can't exactly remember. Obviously, for Asmodeus, I won't have to worry because he's just clad in armor from head to toe. But the other one, I will have to worry about that. But one thing at a time. The gray is pretty much the only other color that's used on her, except for black and red, obviously, because that just covers most of the model. All the clothing is black, red, or some form of metallic. And I mean for her herself. The squid thing and everything it's carrying is where a lot more of the color comes in. I do love how the hand is her right hand. You see it on the left currently, the one I'm not painting at the moment. and it looks like it should be holding something, but I'm perfectly fine with that cackling held up, just like I look like I'm going to be just like imagining I'm gripping your soul or something. And the book here, I had a lot of fun with, actually. There ends up being a lot of things that I do with it, you'll see later, but for now I'm just painting in some baseline color of it. The color of the pages, I did kind of want to go with a dried up flesh kind of thing, which also would look like a very old, worn kind of paper. But I wanted to go to halfway kind of Necronomicon feel. The eyeball in the creature, which again, sorry, was mostly out of frame. I had this happen a lot with the bottom of the model. I went with the darkest of red, and that's just for the basic part of it, the part that would, like be white on a human eyeball. And the scrolls, I actually decided to do for the paper themselves the same color as the book pages, but decided it later, which is why it wasn't one after the other. Although the bindings on the upper scrolls, I decided to go with something that was more like a used up, already decayed flesh, but thinking, oh, this would probably be better for binding and not writing on. Speaking of, as I think they are bindings, the various bands, and also parts of the scrolls themselves, I'm painting in a very dark metallic, just because I thought that would be nice. I wanted the bands to look more like they were made of iron, but with the scrolls, I just thought it would be fitting to have it just be like, okay, this is what they use to hold things together, or what they use for making circular structures out of metal, so let's keep it the same. The smaller scrolls painting on their metallic felt a little odd, but I was okay with it. Now, the metallic on the pen, which I actually paint over later for the most part, but is I use bright as I can because, well, it's a nice shiny pen. And yeah, here's painting those caps on the upper one. Again, doing that was odd. And here's I believe I'm using my Thrall flesh, which is more of an undead looking flesh. I'm either doing that or a very muddied green, kind of like a brownish green for that. Now, painting on the filigree and everything, just even the cornerstone bindings, not cornerstone, for the books, was a little annoying because it's this tiny little bit that you gotta get right, and while the back side of it was easier, the front was harder in order to not make a mess at the same time. But the same can be said about the binding the cover itself on the inside with the black, which I get to later, because right now you can see it's just completely white because I just slopped on the white for the purpose of making it so it was easier to paint the color of the pages itself. And here's painting that pen, super bright silver. I decide when I am cleaning up the model to paint a lot of the pen black, but both ends are kept a brighter color. Now, speaking of black, I decided to speed up the video again to beyond my normal speed for the black part here as well, because, oh boy, is this just a lot. Because this isn't just like, here's the book, which you can see me doing. It's a lot of slow bits where I'm just filling in a lot of stuff. And again, I don't even bother having here in the video the body itself from the waist down, because that took forever. Even the parts that I didn't originally intend to film, I just ended up redoing it over and over again. But there was the inkwell, and also, assuming it's ink, and the pupil of the squid creature, which does get improved upon later, but that's more of a final touch thing, like that's after highlights and all that. But here's where the black really starts taking its time of just like, gotta get all those little bits, make sure that it's surrounding the red so that it stands out more and ends up accenting that better even before painting any object light source painting onto it, which does get done later. But yeah, this is just, it ends up being a lot because it's arms, or it's all the outfit, everything but her skin for the arms, the bust or corset, whatever you want to refer to that as, the whole helmet, because it's also still very kind of palish from being painted white in a very quick base. Getting it here in the actual, corset part was a little difficult to not then make a mess of the whole thing, but it came out looking very nice. Like, before this model ghosted, I was very, very happy with it. That can is no longer used. It was just, okay, nope. Even painting over with a gloss layer didn't help too much. It was pretty bad. It looks better than it did before, but now it's got like 5 layers of varnish on it, and it's kind of a mess. But I do make sure I also paint her nails and everything, the sleeves, interior, exterior. I was debating doing something with the very clearly embroidered runes on the edge of the sleeve, but I just decided to leave that all black, like it was just stitched in the same black that it is. If it would even be stitched at all, because again, these things are not necessarily made of physical. Yeah, Infernals, they're interesting. So I do have a little bit of that, like, this is what I was talking about of painting the bottom, and then this just takes forever. Like, I've done this kind of thing on other models, and it slows down the painting process no matter how little or much of it you have to do. It's actually something that I had to deal with the cultist bands that are one of the units for this faction. I did all 3 units with their weapon attachments at the same time. That was just a pain. It took me a little bit over a month to do all 27 models while working on little to nothing else at the same time. But yeah, so this whole thing, imagine me having to do this for the entire model, and just, it would be really repetitive. So I kind of just said no. And I get one of the bands that I forgot about. And also the jewelry / metallics on the actual body itself, including the buckles and everything. I did debate doing a brownish leather for the straps, but nah. Honestly, as I've said in many videos in the past, I'm happy these days when I don't have to use a brown. And there's that all suddenly done. You can see like how much was actually done and how long it would have taken here on film. Again, I don't want to waste your time with this kind of with the simpler things. Also, I wouldn't know what to say during all of that. Ha ha. So, onto what I usually do with most models, black ink wash for getting all the details and everything. Now, this doesn't actually get used on most of the model, because any of the parts that are the black with the red lighting and everything, I don't actually want inked wash at all. If anything, a red ink would have been done better, but I haven't had a red ink in a long time. But here on the squid, as you can instantaneously see, it just pops out so many of the details, especially on the head. I did debate painting the suction cups a different color, but every image that I could find had it the same color. Like, it is probably just one big giant form substance kind of thing. Again, otherworldly creature. I know if I ever do the swamp horror or things like that, oh yeah, I'll definitely be doing that. Like, the exterior different. Even I suddenly can't remember the name of it, but the creature from Legion of Everblight that's just this thing that you place on the table and it can't move and its tentacles go around. So yeah, the book and everything, which I could have cleaned up and made a lot more smoother, but I actually wanted the book to look a little dirty in the process. Like, it's just like, she doesn't care that it's made of human flesh. It's just, as long as it's still legible. And then on to some highlighting. Yay! So, using some dark gray to still bring out highlights on a lot of the black, because the black isn't supposed to look lightless and everything like that. It's just supposed to be black, normal black with highlighting and everything. Although I don't bother in too many of the areas in which, like the lower part of the body, where it's just like, no, this is going to be lit up a different color. And yeah, believe I used the same gray for highlighting the squid octopus thing, but yeah. It works great for bringing out the details. I don't remember what color I used. It might have just been white, but it looks fine. I actually was really happy with the way it came out, the whole squid and everything. Zaateroth, again, I loved how the whole model came out, but Zaateroth herself was just like, okay, I'm this generic gray, black, and red thing. Okay. And then some bright silver to highlight the various metallic parts all over the model, and then a lighter gray, obviously, for her flesh, because it was already that same gray or lighter. I, again, can't remember exactly. I was one of two colors, and I can't remember off the top of my head. And just some double checking of, like, here are the flesh and everything, or the pages, which again were flesh. And some silver on the parts holding the books together, double checking the things of just like this and that. We highlighting that book with normal flesh. Re-highlighting, or a second layer on the, I seriously don't know what to call it, squid, octopus, arthropod thing. I think I just wanted to bring out the colors a bit more and everything like that, which is always a hard balance to get. You want to highlight, but you don't want to repaint a base layer kind of amount on. Then with the same red used in the model in general, but as an object light source, because I like to do that for my object light painting. I like to use the same color for the highlight that I did as the base coat of that light source, and then painting in the rest of the eye for the squid thing, which really comes out a lot better after some fixing, but it gets the point across. Making sure to get those edges on the vial, because I still want it to look like glass, but it was black, so that's hard to get across since it was also meant to look full. A couple coats even after the horrible ghosting of gloss varnish get added later to make that really clear. And while I have some issues with recording here, as it will cut out in a bit, only for a little bit, I end up writing runes into the book itself. I am writing in D&D Abyssal, I believe. It was the closest thing I could find. I couldn't actually find a written language for Infernalism or Infernals in the Iron Kingdom setting, so I just decided to go with Abyssal, and I believe I wrote "You are doomed." I think, and it's not like a very, like, the last 4 runes on the right page, or the 4 runes on the right page are just one word, and then I just try to put some Eldred's symbol in there. That was kind of messy, but that's the entire model. Zaateroth was actually a lot of fun to paint, little time consuming, and by little I mean very for a model its size, but it turned out very well. I might fix it someday. But that's what it looks like before the ghosting, but c'est la vie. Life happens. At least it didn't end up being a whole sheet of white, aka worst case scenario. Regardless, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please feel free to press that like button. If you think somebody else will enjoy this, feel free to share this video. Either way, you'll help this video get seen more. If you didn't like this video, go ahead and press that dislike button. I won't mind, but please leave a constructive comment as to why. Also, feel free to comment in general, such as if you'd like to see other Infernal models or any models from the Iron Kingdoms. I have a lot of models that I can paint for that. Or if you'd like to hear me talk about Warmachine Hordes or the Iron Kingdoms in general. It is my favorite role-playing setting and one of my favorite tabletop war games, although really there aren't a lot of those when you think about it. And if you'd like to see more like this, be it my painting videos, my unboxing videos, my board game overviews, all 3 of which I try to get around to for the Warmachine Horde setting, and anything else that I might do on this channel, feel free to subscribe. Regardless, thank you for watching and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye!